we are here live. It's Alex Smith speaking at you, and we got Mr. Adam Niall in the building.
Yes, sir.
And this is going to be one of the podcasts. I mean, we have a room full of people here listening to this one right now just because they wanted to soak in some of this knowledge and information.
I don't know why.
Which is crazy because they've only heard you for a little bit, but every time you've entered the room, and by the way, we're over at the Lion's Den right now. That's where we're coming at you live from. And every time we've gone into any room, which we're training a bunch of content, we're doing a bunch of stuff as a team here, and Adam has entered the room, when he goes to speak about a subject we're all curious about, especially when it comes to the body, the mind, the physical, stuff that matters, every single time I have a new reason to listen, one, and then two, to take action on some of the things because you provide the why. Not just like, hey, this is something that makes sense to do, but you go deeper, which means you do your research, which means you vet things a lot more thoroughly than most people. And then you come to us and everyone's just fired up to be able to learn some of these nuggets. So we were like, do we have to do a podcast together where we can get all this out there for everyone to hear?
For sure. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure having you guys here, honestly. I like to talk. So, honestly, I'm an introvert. Really, and it's only been the past. I taught college. I taught college level physiology and nutrition. So that was a long time ago, though. So over the past couple years, I've been very internalized. I'm very introverted and very rusty on my speaking and stuff. So it's really good to have to be able to do our live calls and stuff like that, and to be able to stand in front of people and to be able to talk and do podcasts and things like that. Because a lot of the stuff that I talk about is considered, especially in my industry, in the fitness industry. So a little background on me real quick before we get into that.
We got to get the background.
Yeah, so a little background on me, right? So I am the director of fitness for Andy Elliott's fitness division. So the Elliott Army fitness division. I'm a co-owner of Earn It All, which is the company that takes care of that. Justin Cross is my business partner. I'm sure you guys are going to have him on the podcast as well. So you can hear his story. It's kind of crazy. It's crazy how we met too, because I'm going to go all over the place if that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's not about me. It's about you right now.
It's crazy how Justin and I met. I actually was coming off of being sober for 2 years. And we talked a little bit about me being homeless previously and stuff. And one of the reasons why I think that I couldn't figure out how to get my life back together was because I was, a bottle a night, a fifth of fucking booze a night guy, just to go to sleep. And I didn't think it was a problem until it became a problem, So when I met Justin, he owned a company at the time, and he still does, which I'm a part of now. It's called Earn Your Booze. And I was really interested in what that meant because I was going to AA, and I didn't really like AA because they made you identify with the thing that was negative for you.
That's an interesting perspective on that.
Yeah, so there was a guy there. His name was Joe. He was getting a 30-year coin, and it's. I'm not saying the AA is a bad thing. It works for many people, but it didn't work for me. So Joe was getting a 30-year coin. He stood up there and he said, "Hey, my name's Joe. I'm an alcoholic." And I was like, "Man, that just doesn't seem right. That doesn't sit."
It's been 30 years.
It's been 30 years, yeah. So it didn't sit right with me. So I asked him afterwards. I was, "Hey, man, how long were you an alcoholic?" He said, 15 years. It's like, "So you're alcoholic for 15 years and you've been sober for twice the amount of time?" "Yes." "Why do you still identify with being an alcoholic?" "Well, it's just what AA says to do." I'm like, "Okay. So you don't have the monkey on your back anymore." He goes, "No, absolutely not." And I was like, but you still stand up here and identify with that?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, that sends the wrong signal to people in the audience, I think.
Because then you can't change.
Because you can't change.
You're that forever.
You're that forever. It's sending a signal to me in the audience of being someone that was, I don't remember, 3 or 4 months sober at the time. And I was like, I'm going to be here for 30 years. Is that all I'm waiting for, is just a little token, is this little coin, And maybe that's the wrong mindset to go into it with. I don't know. Didn't work for me, really. I didn't like it. So I kind of just did it on my own for 2 years and met Justin and, noticed I was training strongman at the time. And he had, I was buying his shirts and stuff because I liked him as lift heavy, drink whiskey, even though I wasn't drinking, And I got to a point where I was like, I wonder if I could do this again. So I wonder if I could go out and have an old fashioned on Friday and my whole life not fall apart. So I went and did it. I went and had an old fashioned, and I was like, oh, woke up the next day and went and trained. Nothing happened. My life didn't fall back apart, And I was like, okay, I get it now. I got to earn this shit. So, got linked up with him over Instagram and eventually met him in person. And the day that I met him in person, I told him I was going to work for him.
And that sounds, because like if I were just to pick that apart, it sounds like you just resonated with him.
Yeah.
You felt like you had a lot of similar beliefs, and
Yeah.
obviously he created something because
100%.
it speaks to people, spoke to him, and spoke to you.
Yep. Yeah, and it wasn't the booze part of it at all. I drink maybe 3 times a year now.
Yeah.
Maybe. If there's a wedding, 4. You know what I mean? Like not like often at all. But the resonating part was the earn part, because here in the United States right now, especially in the United States and all over the world, we have this entitlement issue, where it's like we think that we're owed something for being an American, or we think we're owed something for being a fucking human being, and we're not. We're not owed anything. If you look at it like this, and I really like to explain it like this, look at it like this. If we didn't have society, right? If we were back in, caveman days, what are you owed? Nothing. We are an animal. We're a human. A human being is still an animal.
I don't even think you could be owed something.
So, no, you didn't even know. It's like, okay, what are we here to do? We're here to procreate, and we're here to find food, and we're here to, do these things that we're supposed to do, right? Actually, it's really interesting, especially as a man. Jack Donovan explains it really well in his book, The Way of Men, which I suggest everybody read. It's a very good book. He's actually here local. Hopefully he's going to come to the workout tomorrow. I'm going to invite him. So he's a friend of ours. But he explains it like this, is like being a man. It's like you have a couple of things that you have to do to be good at being a man, right? You have to increase your resources. You have to increase your perimeter, right? And you have to protect your tribe. And you have to hunt and gather and, do those things, right? And it's like that's your entire like purpose of being a human being male. And everything goes back to that. Even today, right? Even today, all the things that we do go back to mating, go back to increasing our resources, go back to increasing our perimeter, they go back to those things. It's just looked at in a different way, right? We're always doing something in order to gain resources or to mate or to, whatever it is. It's like, that's what we're doing, and I think it's crazy. I know we're going down a bunch of rabbit
I just want to say,
holes
dude,
here,
I freaking love your mind, because you go to say something that other people have talked about, but it's from an entirely different perspective, meaning it doesn't sound like anything I hear from you is something I've heard from anybody else, including the AA thing. I've literally never thought about it from that perspective. But I've also, I stopped drinking over 2 years ago. And AA was in my family, right? People went to AA in my family, and I also never resonated with it either. For some reason, I just was like, that just doesn't seem like it would work for me, and it doesn't seem like it's working for other people in my family that well. But not that it doesn't work for people, but I've just never thought of it. So I just appreciate your mind, because I think it's very unique to be able to just identify different little things, because not everything's exactly the way it appears or the way people talk about it on the regular basis.
This is the way I think of it, right? Because especially nowadays, we hear people talk personal development, right? This is a really good example, personal development. And you hear people say these sound bites and these things, right? They hit all the bullet points. The people who resonate the most, there's experience behind their words. So like if somebody talks about, pulling themselves out of a hole, right? We'll just use that as an example. If somebody speaks about pulling themselves out of hardship, but they've never been in hardship, they're just hitting the bullet points, everybody can fucking tell. Yeah. Like you can tell. You can 100% tell when somebody's just hitting the bullet points and hitting the things and da-da-da, And this is a really controversial statement that I'm about to make. It's one of the reasons why I didn't resonate with Tony Robbins. And I appreciate what he does. Love the guy. He's the best at what he is. He's literally the best, right? He is the best in personal development. But he fucking better be, because he's been doing it since he was 16. That's all he's done, ever. He was a roadie for another motivational speaker, and then he became a motivational speaker, and he's been doing that for 65 years. You better be the fucking best at it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, so I don't resonate with what he says, even though he has a lot of experience behind his words, stuff like that. I personally don't resonate with what he says, because I appreciate experience more, and experience in a sense of not like I experience something by viewing it in other people, but by experiencing it myself. So 100%. I'm in a unique situation there too, because upbringing was I think in a perfect part of time where we didn't have cell phones and shit like that, but we were getting into that as I was like going into high school. So I'm 35. So, my first cell phone I had to buy myself, and it was like, one of those brick phones, because I had 2 jobs when I was in high school. I bought my own first car when I was 16, had to get a cell phone because my mom wanted to know where the fuck I was. So it's like, all right, cool. I had the Nokia brick phone or whatever, and the battery's still on, I'm sure. Like, if I found it somewhere in my mom's stuff, the battery would still probably turn on. But I'm in a unique generation. I know a lot of you guys are too. How old are you, Alex?
29.
29. So you're at the tail end of that unique, like generation
I had
where
the brick phone.
where you remember,
I didn't buy it, but I had it.
Right, where you remember what it was like to play outside. Where
Yeah.
you remember what it was like to
Street kickball was
the street kickball. You remember all that stuff that's not a real thing anymore, and it's almost like such a turn in society that we remember that stuff, so we can speak on things, especially in the personal development and like mindset space, because we had a time in our lives where we didn't have all the information at our fingertips, and we had to figure some shit out. Being a kid without a cell phone, like if you took a 15-year-old now and you took their cell phone away, they're useless. They're completely useless. Figure out how to get home. And I'm gonna ask everybody, how many of you turn your GPS on your phone to go places you know where to go? Why?
Yeah.
And the excuse is always, well, I want to see if there's traffic. There's always traffic. There's always traffic.
And if there is, I call it the blue line of certainty.
Right. And if there is traffic, I know 3 different ways to get home anyways.
Yeah.
So why do you turn, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
So that's another, but anyways, to get back to the point, if we know what the point even was, because I'm going in 13 different directions, but coffee's good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going in 13 different directions, but the point is that I'm in a unique situation to talk about a lot of stuff because I've experienced so much in 35 years that I put it into lifetimes. Like, I've lived 7 lifetimes already. So the lifetime of me growing up to graduating high school is 1 lifetime. I went in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. That's another lifetime. And then there's many lifetimes in there too. So I could break it down into, okay, when I was in, boot camp and combat training and all that stuff, that's one experience that I had and I can pull a bunch of stuff from. And then after that, I went to school in the Marine Corps to be a Harrier mechanic, so that's a whole different thing. And then deployments are a whole different thing. And then when I got out of doing that, I went to the oil field and I was a subsea engineer. And I did that for a couple years down in Texas. And then it's like, okay, now I have this experience of, doing all the wrong things, making all the mistakes, because I grew up without a father, right? As a man, as a boy, you have to have a father, number one.
100%.
And this is a really crazy statistic, but 70% of households in America are single mother homes. Like 70%. I think it's like 68, but it's like almost 70% of all households in America are like single mother homes now.
No way.
Like, dude, we have a dad problem.
Yeah.
And it's because we have a boy problem, and it's because we have a people don't want to step the fuck up and be a man problem, right?
Yeah.
So, growing up like that, you have to make all the mistakes yourself. If you don't get around really, really good men, I was in the Marine Corps. It was no brainer. I'm around really good people. I'm around really good leaders. I'm around really bad people too. So I understand what good leaders are and what bad leaders are, right? So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to the oil field, was making a ton of money, $200-300 grand a year right out of the Marine Corps. My first month check was more than I made the entire last year I was in the Marine Corps. And I asked them if it was a mistake.
How did you get that job? Was it just because of your background?
No, so it was because I knew a bunch of guys that had gone down there and worked. And they did all the legwork for me. So they're like, hey, we can get you a job. Cool.
It's quite the job to start.
Yeah, it's cool. So I went down and I worked for a company called Oceaneering. I was a technician at first on the floor, and I really quickly moved up in the organization. And they had a blow up preventer subsea department they were building, and I got selected for it, and then went off from there. And this was right before Obama had put sanctions on oil and gas, so oil was booming. It was hot. It was, you're gone for 90 days, you're back for 10, and then you're gone, and then boom, boom, boom. So I had, Shell, BP, Transocean, all these companies wanting us to put our, control systems on their rigs, and, and then that's where the big money is, because they pay you retainer. It's like $400 grand a year, you're a retainer, and you work 6 months out of the year.
Oh man,
money, right?
But you're gone when you're working those 6 months.
Yeah,
which is something you're already used to at that point.
Already used to, yeah. I'm single, no kids. you know, all over the world. I've been to 34 countries as of right now, 34 different countries.
Wow.
So again, that builds into the very unique situation of experience, right? I've seen some of the worst countries in the world. I've seen some of the best countries in the world. Somalia is probably the worst country I've ever been to, by the way. It's fucking horrible. But
based on the movies I've seen,
it's terrible. It's worse. It's 10 times worse. Yeah, it's 10 times worse than that.
It's dangerous, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's one of the most like primal places in the world. It's you could just kill somebody just because you want to. You know what I mean? And there's no law, there's no like governmental, there is a government, but it's like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So but anyways, so I experienced all that stuff, and I continuously experienced things the wrong way, probably, So when I was in oil and gas, I experienced that 100% the wrong way. Making a ton of money, but also blowing a ton of money. So, you're gone for 90 days, and, if the boss says, hey, you're back for 6 days, fuck yeah, 6 days, I'm going to party. Like hard.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm talking throwing $10,000 racks at the strip club hard. Like, how much money of mine can I blow when I get back?
6 days.
In 6 days, yeah. Because I know I'm just going to go back on the rig where all my food is there. Like, I fucking whatever. You know what I mean?
Nothing to buy.
Nothing to buy. I have nothing to buy, nothing to spend, And so did it the wrong way. And one of the reasons why I left that, I was looking at some of the guys that I work with, and they were, only 10 years older than me, but they looked like they were 80. And I was like, oh, this life's hard, and it's like you work hard, then you play way harder, and then you go work harder, and then you play, and it's just this vicious cycle. And I knew there was more for me than that.
Yeah.
And I had always had this, this passion for fitness and nutrition and health and all this stuff. And I have a brain injury from Afghanistan.
What caused that?
Yeah, so I was in a blast in Afghanistan. I hit my head really hard. There's a scar right here, but
you're in a blast, and
yeah, it wasn't anything really crazy, but I have a brain injury from it, so
couldn't tell.
I can't.
Did you lose your hair?
No, I can't have kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
So my pituitary got basically destroyed.
Jeez.
So I can't have kids. And found that out later, and that kind of all rolls into me going in the oil field, and I had hormonal issues. So this is 25, 26, 27 years old. I had like massive hormonal issues. So I was depressed. I was, all this stuff. I was fucking driving a Ferrari when I was in the oil field, but I put a gun in my mouth every morning, so I didn't really understand what was wrong. So it's like finally 7 doctors later find out that I have hormonal issues. So get that fixed, HRT. I'm on HRT. I have been since I was 27. But also found out that because my pituitary gland is messed up, I can't have kids. So,
that must have been a tough moment to find something out like that.
Yeah. I'd never thought about having kids before that, but as soon as you find out you can't, it's like damn, like, okay, I have to push my life in a different direction now. You know what I mean? And I have to do something different. And that's when I left the oil field, essentially, went back to school, got pretty much every certification and class and like everything I could possibly get for nutrition, physiology, like all this shit.
Were you acing everything when you were in college, when you were in school?
When I...
It seems like you just grab all the information you learn.
I learn on my own. I don't learn from somebody teaching me.
Right.
That's what I mean.
I can tell.
I don't learn in the classroom
because it doesn't sound like anybody else.
No, I don't learn anything in the classroom. I learned. The only thing I learned in college was how to read research. That's the only thing I ever learned.
You learned how to learn, basically.
I learned how to learn.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing that I pulled from college. And then also one of the reasons why I dropped out of college was because I realized it wasn't beneficial at all. It was you're paying to hear somebody's opinion on a book that was written by somebody's opinion that's also 30 years old. And I'm like, this information isn't correct based on the research that we know now. This isn't correct. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I actually got into a fight with a physiology professor before, not like a physical fight, but like a verbal fight, because they were still teaching that saturated fat gives you heart disease, and I was like, that's wrong. We've known that's been wrong. Like, that's not a real thing at all. It's like, can you show me that? And he showed me the Ansel Keys 7 countries study, and I was like, that's fucking debunked. That's stupid. That's the stupidest study I've ever seen. We know that. Like, it's not a conspiracy.
Oh,
it's not
these teachers' ego and
oh, dude,
go way up right here.
Dude, it's and but anyways, so I ended up teaching physiology, nutrition, performance enhancement, corrective exercise at a school in San Diego, at a vocational school, and did that for a couple of years, and I really liked it until I didn't like it anymore because they tried to essentially like backdoor me on some stuff. I wrote curriculum for them, and then their education director tried to put his name on it. And
I think that happens a lot in that.
Yeah,
in that space.
and their like reasoning for that was that I didn't have the right degrees, and I was like, that doesn't matter at all. Like, this is the curriculum that we're using. Yes, they're like, yes, and I said in all 8 schools, yes. Weird. I'm out of here. So I left, and I went and completely jaded from fitness. I was like, fuck this. I hate the industry. I still hate the industry. I hate the fitness industry, but I'm in it, and I'll tell you why here in a second.
Different perspective.
And I hate the industry as it sits now, but I went and I worked in construction. The girl I was dating at the time, her dad was working this big job down in San Diego, so I went and worked with him, and I actually helped build the wall, right? The actual wall, like Trump's wall. Right?
Oh, no kidding.
Interestingly enough, it's not really Trump's wall because they were already building it during the Obama administration. A lot of people don't know that. It was Obama's wall first. Same bollards, same height and everything, but, it was just, blame it on Trump. But so I helped build that wall from basically from the ocean to Arizona. Most of California sections of wall. Again, making really good money. Not really giving a fuck.
Connections brought you there?
Yeah, connections, yeah. Not really, making good money, not really knowing what I wanted to do still. Was like completely jaded from fitness. Did
you feel like that wall's going to work?
It works.
Yeah.
100% works, yeah. So if you look at it, there's 2 sections of 30-foot bollards. This is what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be 1 section of 30-foot bollards.
What's a bollard?
Like big steel,
okay.
Like pipes, basically.
Okay.
And then they're filled with concrete. So the bollard fence, so you can see through it too, right? So there's supposed to be a 30-foot fence here, 100 feet in between, so Border Patrol could, it's like no man's land. And then another 30-foot fence here. And at the top of the bollards, there's a like 7-foot piece of like plate steel that's like a 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's sharp at the top. So like even if you can climb the bollards, you get to the top, and there's like it's almost impossible to get the other side. So we saw it a couple of times, guys climbing up, and we're just like sitting there on my, whatever piece of equipment I'm like, oh, that sucks. That's gonna suck. Guy gets to the top, slips, falls, the top of the fence cuts him open, and he falls all the way to the ground. Like, and it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't try to climb the fence.
Oh man, so that fence is legit.
So it works, yeah. And then the other thing is too.
The only reason I asked that is because I've never.
So they knew it wasn't going to stop people from getting over it.
Yeah.
But it slows them down enough that the Border Patrol can then track them, clock them, figure out where they are. So there's just big swaths that are open though.
Yeah.
Because we didn't finish it. So when that got shut down, January of 2020, that got shut down completely. On January 20th of 2020, that's when Joe Biden came in. He shut it down completely. Everybody lost their jobs, and here I am again. No job. Man. Can't figure out what the fuck I want to do.
And you're making good money doing that.
I was making good money, but again, didn't
keep it.
Can keep it, right? So that was when I basically like lost everything, right? And that's when I was sleeping in my truck, and that's when, like I was telling you about before, and that's when I built my own company, basically at a coffee shop on my laptop. I built a company called TBO 90, and it was a total body optimization 90, right? And in 18-day blocks, I took people through optimizing their health because that's what I knew that I could do. I knew I loved it. I knew how to do it, and I was good at it. So I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build this business. So I built that up, built it up to, I was making probably, I think my best month I made $7,500. Wasn't anything
how are you
crazy.
Selling the program?
Over like Facebook, and I gave it to for free to a bunch of people that I knew so they could try it out and give me referrals and stuff. And basically just crowdsourced it and bootstrapped it.
It's
out
not
of my
easy.
no, it's not, out of a truck and out of my coffee shop. Didn't know anything about business at the time, because I'd never owned a business before that.
Because
So
it's one thing to build the blueprint and you understand, because I've gone through this experience before. Most people probably don't know this, but in college, my buddy Ben Frost, we started this company called Emoji Case.
Okay.
I was a bartender. He was a bartender. We're working at the same bar. Emojis were getting real popular. We're like, we got to do something with the emojis.
I have
we
to.
saw this
Yep.
article about someone creating these like emoji masks for
Yeah.
Halloween, and they made so much money. We're like, we're getting into the emoji space. We don't know how. So then we created emoji phone cases. We like worked with China. We got different. We figured out how to get 3D printing done, so we can 3D print them on there. Create good enough phone cases where they're actually protective. Went through that whole process of actually creating, even designing the cases. I mean, shout out to Ben for. We were just chatting the other day, actually, but he was the one who put up the money and everything because he had money through his design business, like $10,000. I was just kind of like, you put it up, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then we created like 5,000 of these phone cases, all different emojis, had them delivered from China. And then we only sold a couple of them because the execution after, it was really exciting and really energizing building the thing that we're like, this could do really well.
Yep.
We even brought it to AT&T stores, got into a couple pitches with them. And we're like, this could be, and we did the math, right? You always do the math. If we sell this many units of this, it's like
$1
Mom, Dad, we're millionaires. We're going to be millionaires next year. Like in college, this is going to happen. We got a couple in a couple stores, and you sold a couple here and there, but then I just reverted back to the easy thing, which was partying and doing what I was, best at that time.
Yep.
And so my point is like building the thing and creating the blueprint and creating the business when you use the skills you have. And I didn't really feel like I hadn't had those skills, but that's one thing. But then actually getting to the point where you're making $7,500 in your best month and you're figuring out how to get it to the people that are going to appreciate it and value it is very, very challenging.
It's difficult. And it's like I didn't know anything about funnels or ads. I tried to run an ad by myself.
I did too.
Didn't work at all.
It was bad.
It was bad. Yeah, I think I wasted like $2,000, and I got like one person that clicked on it, and it was like my mom. It's like, I saw your ad. Like,
I got some of those too.
So I didn't really understand the whole thing. So that's around the same time that I had started training for strongman again, and I was like, all right, I'm going to compete because I know I can do that. And I had some money that I had made on a very stupid crypto bet, which is really interesting. It was on Shiba Inu.
Oh, yeah. I was around for that.
I got into Shiba Inu before it was on any exchanges. I put $76 into it, and I turned it into $368,000.
You sold it?
And no, so this is what happened. The day that Elon tanked the market tanked the Bitcoin market, my brother and I were sitting there because he bought like $150 worth of it. And we're sitting there, I was refreshing my phone, and the money was going up like $10,000 every time I refreshed my phone. I was like, we're going to be millionaires. And my brother and I were sitting there, and I was like homeless, and I was like, this is it. Like,
it's never enough.
It's not. And I was like, just doing this. And little did I know anything about crypto at all at the time, where I was like, I couldn't have sold it anyways.
Yeah.
There's nobody that wanted to buy it. Even if I wanted to sell it, like, that's not the way that whole thing works. So I was like, even if it would have gone up to,
it doesn't just sell.
No, it doesn't just sell. Like, there has to be somebody on the other end that wants to buy it, and nobody wants to buy Shiba Inu at fucking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, cause I bought it for 0.000000017 or something like that. It was like $76 where there's 10 billion of them. And
by the way, I got convinced to buy Shiba Inu at the high, so there is someone on the other side. That's buying.
I actually ended up during the crash of it. We're sitting there watching it crash. Me and my brother, like, I'm pulling my hair out because I still had hair, at the time. I'm pulling my fucking hair out, right? That's why I don't have hair. But I'm trying to get it out. I ended up getting 42,000 out.
Okay.
Right. So I had a little. Yeah. So what I did was I took like 15 grand and put it into my like little savings thing. I was like, all right, I'm good right now. Like, I'm still gonna live in my truck, and I'm gonna use this to like figure some shit out, right? And then I did the thing that every 32-year-old guy would do when they come into like 30 grand like that. I went and bought a Harley, right? Super funny, right? So I went and bought a Harley, paid cash for it, and it was a bucket list thing. I always wanted to go to the Harley dealership and drop cash on the thing and say, I want that one, right? So I did it.
I don't know if that's every man's dream, but
I mean, it was a bucket list thing, right?
Yeah,
it was like, I want to go to the Harley dealership and drop cash on a brand new Road Glide. Brand new, blacked out, beautiful, right? So I did that, and it was awesome. And the IRS was mad at me for that, for sure. I got nasty letters about it. They're like, "Where'd you get this cash from?" And I was like, "Shit, I got to tell you, I guess." So, but anyways, so I was still, couch surfing and truck, living and stuff like that. I was at my brother's house for a little bit, and then he rented his house out, so I had to leave and didn't really know what I was going to do. And a friend of mine in Vegas actually, I actually attest a lot of my success now to her, because she saved me from the position that I was in. She was deploying. She was in the Air Force. She was deploying. She needed somebody to watch her dog. And I was like, oh, I mean, I probably know somebody in Vegas. And she was like, well, hold on, what are you doing right now? And I was like, absolutely nothing. She's like, can you live at my house while I'm gone? I was like, yes, 100% yes, I can. And I told her, after that conversation, I was like, hey, thank you so much. Like, I'm in a really shitty spot right now. I don't really know what I want to do and whatnot. So, as I was building the TBO business, that was all happening. I moved to Vegas. I got a job doing some EP, some executive protection work, for a company called CSA.
Is that for CEOs? Is that for?
It's like celebrities, CEOs, individuals like that. We actually had we did some of the Trump campaign rallies. So we were liaisoned with the Secret Service a couple times. So that was pretty fun. But so I was doing all this stuff, right? And I was working in clubs in Vegas, trying to make money and doing all this stuff and just trying to figure it out. And Justin and I, we were linked up online, and the Earn Your Boost thing was going and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I really like this brand. And I was wearing his stuff and always like posting for him and stuff and everything. And he was coming to Vegas for an NFL event, for an NFL alumni event, that he's still connected with. And he was like, hey, why don't you come out and check out the event? And I met him at the event. We had a couple conversations, and by lunchtime I told him I wanted to work for him. So told him I wanted to work for him. He was like, there's something here, because he kind of knew my background. And I was like, yeah, there's definitely something here. So, we talked about it a little bit. And the 2 months after that event, we were talking more, and we're like, okay, we're going to build this, Earn It All Academy, which is what the website's still called. And I was going to build courses and things like that. That was our original plan. And I was like, there's no reason for me to be in Vegas. My friend Rochelle was back, and I'm sure she wanted me out of her house, Thank you, Rochelle. I'm sure she wanted me out of her house. So I was like,
there was no, you have to get out. She just let you keep riding it out.
Yeah.
What a good person.
Yeah.
You need those people.
She was like, she's like, I know you're going to figure something out. So, I was like, all right, well, I was thinking to myself, I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to, do it the same way that I did it before, where I kind of half-ass things and kind of halfway go in and, there's still, leave on the table something that I can still figure out, or what am I going to do? And I decided that I was just going to move to Phoenix and work with Justin, whatever that looked like. He actually told me not to move yet, and I was like, no, dude, I'm coming.
Because he probably didn't have a spot.
No, he didn't have a spot. Didn't have any idea how we were going to pay me. Didn't have anything. Yeah. We didn't have anything yet. Earn Your Booze was still coming off of COVID, so it was like just trying to rebuild that too. And it was like, dude, I was like, no, I have to be in Phoenix. So I have to be around it. Like, I have to be there. I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I sold the Harley, sold the Harley.
Just get the one last ride in?
And I got the one last ride in, and then I sold the Harley and paid off some debt that I owed, paid off my truck. And so I was like, all right, I have my truck now that I have as like an asset, Mm-hmm. And got an Airbnb for a month here in Phoenix, and that was it, man. Now we're here.
That's not it at all.
Now we're here.
We missed a step. We missed a step real quick.
Yeah.
Because what's incredible about this is because you believed you just needed to be here, right? You just knew this is where you needed to be. You need to be in the right environment. You believed in Justin believed in you. It was just like you had to be there. There was just that craving that was not the right place. This is the right place.
I knew it. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. I knew that I was meant for more than what I was doing. And I was like, this might sound arrogant or whatever. I don't really care how it sounds. I was like, I'm so much more intelligent than fucking doing security and like, and my business wasn't working. So I was like, I was listening to a lot of Patrick Bet-David, and I was like, the stuff that he talks about entrepreneurs, I'm like, I'm almost that, but I'm not that.
Yeah.
And then one day on one of his videos, he said Intrapreneur. And I was like, what the fuck is that? You know, I was like, hold on a second. There's a different one? Like, because I'm not the entrepreneur. Like, that's what people think. They're like, oh, you know, it's entrepreneur. I'm like, no, I'm an intrapreneur.
Within a business.
I'm within a business. I take care of
100%.
everything within a business. I'm a COO. I'm not the CEO. I'm a COO. Like I'm a Sean Pollard. I'm not the Andy. I'm not Andy. I'm Sean. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, when I got linked up with Justin, it was almost a no-brainer. It was like no, this is what we're doing, and we figured it out. And you know, I put a lot of you know, I put a lot of trust in him too, because it was like we didn't know how we were gonna pay me, but he did.
Yeah.
He did. Since day one, he fucking paid me.
No kidding.
And made sure I was taken care of since day one. I think maybe it came out of his pocket at first too, which I don't know. He'll never tell me. But
so when you got here and you're like, we're gonna figure this thing out, I'm sure you guys started to do some business.
Yeah.
You're making some money, right? The company was making some
Yeah,
money.
the company,
But then you made this big pivot where you aligned perfectly with the Elliott group. You literally solved in my opinion, you helped make this the best company in the world.
well,
Because it's so needed and it literally does not exist.
Yeah.
And it's like everything he believes, everything I believe, we're able to fuel. You know, you guys run the fitness division for our company and for Elliott's company. It bridges the gap between a lot that we say and what people can do.
and the thing about being an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur is about problem solving, right? That's all it is. And Justin can problem solve like a motherfucker. Like that, he is a problem solver. So we started the business as Earn-It-All Academy. I was building out a Kajabi platform with courses, and we were going to sell courses. We were actually in talks with Lightspeed to, you know, do a low-level Lightspeed platform. This was before we knew Andy, like, at all. Like, we hadn't even met him yet. And Justin had got hooked up with Brad Lee through some other stuff because he was also, like, looking at life insurance and things like that. So he got hooked up with Brad Lee, and we were going to do a Lightspeed build-out and, you know, all this stuff for Earn-It-All Academy, where I wanted to teach fitness and nutrition and, like, the real shit.
Yeah.
I wanted to teach the real stuff that, like, no, this is the rubber meets the road. This is how you really become healthy. This is what it really means. This is what, you know, this is, you know, nutrient deficiencies and all this stuff that we're missing in America. Like, I want to teach that stuff. And so that's the direction we were going. And Brad actually told Justin, he goes, you have to go down to Fountain Hills and meet this guy, Andy. And he told Justin that. Justin came down to an event and he met Andy for 15 minutes. They talked out back, and, you know, Justin came back to the office and he was like, I got an idea. Like, okay. You know, and we were already doing like live calls. Like, a lot of you guys are on our calls and stuff every week. I was already doing live calls for our small coaching, you know, thing that we had. Because we had, you know, probably like 12 people in the Earn-It-All Academy, right? And I would do live calls with them every week. Still did it. I did it with one person on it. I did it with 12 people on it. I do it with 100 people on it, you know? And in my fucking apartment that I had downtown with a black sheet behind me, you know what I mean? Now I have this beautiful neon sign of this beautiful place, and, you know, but so we met Andy, and then Justin brought me up here, and I met him, and then Andy had just said, like, hey, you know, you guys can come up here and do your thing. Like, you know, Andy knew he wanted us around for a reason, right? And we know that now. I didn't know why before. I was like, all right, yeah, cool, we'll come up here, you know. And kind of started to see, like, you know, we got invited to a couple seminars, and it was like, man, like, this is fucking, he's talking fitness a lot.
Yeah.
It was like, how can we capitalize on this, right? And of course, that's the conversation that we had, was like, how do we capitalize on this? Like, this is a whole demographic of people that fitness doesn't care about. Is this the problem with the fitness industry, is they only care about other people in the fitness industry. Most coaches, trainers, and, you know, people online only care about the other coaches, trainers, or people online who are in fitness. It's like when you know, insert fucking fitness influencer here, right, puts a video out, it's not for the general public. It's not because they actually care about people. It's because they want, like, people to know who they are, right? And yes, there is a point where, like, you need people to know who you are, just for influence and stuff like that. But it's a whole other thing when it's like, no, that's all you care about.
Yep.
You know, like, it's all you care about is people knowing who you are. And then after they know who you are, then you can charge them a bunch of money to, like, take your stupid PDF nonsense, right, that you could find on bodybuilding.com, and that ain't it. So basically when we got hooked up with Andy, it was like, all right, well, let's do something here. And Justin, Justin and Andy and Jacqueline had a conversation about, hey, you talk fitness a lot. Let us build you a solution. And they kind of went, yeah, sure. And you could tell Andy kind of like, yeah, sure. People said that to him a lot back then. I think he had like 14,000 followers back then, because Andy's blown up a lot in the last year. I think his Instagram was like 14,000. Now it's like 480,000.
I think it's over 600.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's his YouTube is almost 500,000. Yeah. But, so we're like, hey, let us build you a solution. And he was like, yeah, sure. Okay.
Because everyone says they're going to build
Everyone
something.
says it. Yeah. So Justin and I basically put that business on hold, put everything that we had, all of our resources into the next 3.5 months. So for 3.5 months, I was back at a coffee shop, basically, building out the infrastructure for what we have now. We had no idea if Andy was going to like it. We had no idea if he was going to say yes. We had no idea if it was going to be if it was going to work. We had no idea. I was like, fuck it, let's go. It was another one of those situations where, as soon as you just know.
Yep.
And I'm sure you felt the same way when you met Andy too. It was like, okay, there is a lot of alignment here.
I was like, we're going to do business together. Went to the first conference with him. I think it was in April, May, or June. I don't know. It was July.
It was in April.
It was April?
I think so. Yeah.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
I went to the first conference here. We never really had VIP. Didn't even really have a chance to talk or connect very much because he was getting swarmed by everybody.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was just locking eyes with him at the event. I don't know if he was actually just looking at me or looking at other people, but it felt like he was looking at me.
He was trying to sell you.
And
He's like, that guy looks like you.
I was like, I don't know why. I don't know why this feels this to me at this moment. But I was like, we're gonna do. I was like, I'm not here to just get. Yeah. I'm here to get coached. I'm here to learn. But I'm like, there's something bigger here between us. I don't know what it is, but I just felt it deep down, and I know what that feeling is like. And then all of a sudden, the universe just was like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So we came back, 4 months later, and we presented this all to Andy and Jacqueline at their house, with a whiteboard and everything. It was like, we're drinking coffee at fucking midnight because that's what Andy does for some reason. We're sitting there and we're presenting all this, and it was like, wow. They kind of looked at us like, holy shit, you guys actually did it. We thought you were gonna disappear like everybody else does.
Yeah.
Everybody says they can do big shit, right? Everybody says a lot of words, right? Everybody says they can do all kinds of shit, but nobody takes action.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we made these wristbands. It's action over words, because that's what we're all about. If we say we're gonna do something, we do it. Even if it's putting our entire business on hold at the time, the entire direction of the business we were going to take, and go, you know what, there's alignment here, so let's do it.
Yeah. Complete reroute. But it was actually what you guys needed and wanted the most, though, deep down.
100%.
That was the right protocol. It was not building that course out in VT Lightspeed. It was not doing that, because that wouldn't be something, for me. And I think about my company as a whole right now, because I'm like, I need everybody on this app. I need everyone in the fitness division. I need everyone to understand how this was built and who it's coming from. That's why I really wanted to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Because it's so valuable to understand the brains behind the machine, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you might just think it's just some blanket slate, no one really put any thought into the bodybuilder.com programs.
There's a lot of programs out there like that too. There's a lot of programs with big money behind them.
Yeah.
That, the marketing is so good that it's like, oh, well, this must be something crazy. And then you get on it and it's like
the same.
Oh,
I felt the same way because, throughout my fitness journey, right, as I've been figuring out navigating it, you watch the YouTube videos. That's a big star, right? You see the Ronnie Coleman in the beginning. And then the only way I would actually lock into a program, and you have to be on a program. If you're not on some sort of program, it's very hard to show up every single day, because you just have to figure it out. And when you have to figure it out every day, oftentimes you just don't figure anything out. You just don't do it. And so I always had to find the person that I fully believed in. And that's with everything, in business and fitness, everything. I have to find the person I believe in, that I know knows their shit, and I know has the right information. And for me, for a while, that was, I'm sure Jeff Nippard.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I listened to him, I heard him speak, and the way he did his research, very intelligent. I'm like, this isn't the bro science stuff I've been listening to, and I have nothing wrong with a little bit of bro science here and there, but this isn't that. I can tell that this is methodical, meaning I'm like, if I don't even have to, if I don't question it, if I just stick to this routine, this push-pull leg split and I actually do what it says to do, I'm going to get some results. And I got a lot of results from it because I had the belief in the routine, in the program.
That's
But
big.
the problem was I only did that I did it for over 2 years, his routine, which is a long time to be on the same program, right? Like you need some, in my opinion, you want a little bit of variability to keep it fun.
Sure. Not as much as people think though.
Yeah. You don't need a ton. Yeah. But I didn't have any direct contact with Jeff Nippard. Right. So there's like, you need a little bit of that, I think, to make it go to the next level.
I think that's one of the benefits of having a program like this where we actually do live calls every week. So our higher, so we have a couple different levels of programming, right? And your guys' whole company has access to me on the app, right? Our program level does not have that.
Yeah.
They don't have direct coaching access. You guys can message me anytime you want, and it's me talking to you, right? Our higher level clientele have that. Our program level doesn't, but they get to talk to me on the live calls every week. Nobody does that. No, you can't get a hold of Jeff Nippard. You can't get a hold of, Greg Doucette. You can't get a hold of these guys selling programs
set it
online.
And forget it.
Yeah, it's set it, forget, or it's, a PDF, or it's you check in once a week, and it's like, okay, cool, but like, I work out every day, not once a week.
Yeah.
Life happens every day, not once a week. That's why even on the lower level programs, we have our support line that's available 24/7 if our support people are awake, right?
Yeah.
So
that belief part though, and the contact is extremely valuable to me. It's the same thing with Andy, right? The fact that me and him can communicate every day, it just allows me to take it to another level and allows me to feel it.
Yeah.
And makes it very easy for me to go execute on what you say, because we already know if I do what you say, if I do what Aaron says, you guys already know. Like I know you guys know that I will get the results.
Oh yeah, it's no question.
I will get what I want out of it. It just, I have to have that belief first. So the fact that you guys built a program and you included, in this case, right, with us and with the higher level programs, a way to contact you guys and do the live calls, it adds that layer that I think is missing from, I would say, and Andy does the same thing in his business, right? It adds that missing layer when 99% of, I think, other businesses and companies, they just create that, maybe it's a program or maybe it's a sales training, right? And then they're like, okay, it's created, let's go sell this thing. And they're never going to actually want to spend they don't even want to spend time with the people buying it. They just want to get it off and get it sold.
They want to scale a product, not people.
That's it.
Right. I want to scale people.
Yeah.
And in order to scale people, there has to be a connection.
People,
yeah. There has to be some sort of connection, even if it's 1 week live call or even if it's whatever it is, like that little bit of connection, that little bit of personal connection goes the whole extra mile. Yeah. And, because again, like I said, you're scaling a product, right? Anybody can scale a product.
Scaling a product versus scaling people is
that's the hard part too, because this is also something, there is nobody else in this industry that is scaling people like we are. There are zero, and I'll call it right now, and this is going to piss a lot of people off in fitness too. There are 0 people that are scaling a business like we are. Zero. Nobody is doing what we're doing. They might use the same technology as us. They might have the same like basic model or whatever, but they can't do it like us, because there is a personal touch on every single thing that happens to every single person in our program. And I make that a personal like goal of mine, that I touch, taste, smell, fucking everything, everybody's program, everybody's. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have gone through our programs, and I have done every single one of them with Aaron.
How much have you guys scaled since because there's 3 months, right, of just this new build out, reroute? How much have you guys scaled since then? Because I mean, that's a massive shift. In direction as a company. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're almost rebuilding.
So in December, we had everything ready in December of last year. January, we did kind of like a soft launch, figuring out numbers and figuring out like what, that's what you have to do in fitness, is price point. In any industry, you have test, right? Yeah. And we finally found, so January, February, March, we're kind of soft, like, okay, we're kind of figuring it out. I think our best, month at the beginning of the year for the coaching business alone was like 12 grand, maybe 12, 15 grand, something like that. We had a really good event month in April, and I think we, did maybe 30 or 40, and then we figured it out. And it was, we were trying to scale a product, not people. It's like, okay, let's go back to what we know, and it's scaling people. So we locked everything in and launched again in April, at the end of April, May, And since May, we've scaled to over 6 figures a month, every month, like doubling. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's massive.
Yeah.
And now that we've gotten to the point of the story where we're here now, right?
Yeah.
We're here now today, which is awesome because I can walk around this facility.
Mm-hmm.
I can see all those guys on the sales floor. I can see Andy, and then I can see the fitness division.
Yeah.
I can see the gym. It's like this campus of success, basically, where it's everything you could ever want to live
Yeah.
the life you've always wanted.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go into this because this is what got me where I was like, everyone needs to get a piece of your brain. Everyone needs to hear it. They need to understand who's building these programs,
Sure.
who's behind the scenes. So talk to me through some of the philosophies because there's a lot of things that I've heard you bring up, and I'm going to
Yeah.
touch on some of them. Then I'll let you. I know you're good at expanding on stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's go
Too
into
good.
let's go into the nutrition side of things
Sure.
first.
Yeah.
What's the philosophy behind building out these nutrition programs for individuals, and like you guys made it pretty easy to decide what to avoid
Mm-hmm.
and what you should take
Yeah.
part and what you can
So
eat, which makes it, you need to make it simple to execute.
Let me just break out Dr. Nail here.
Welcome,
So-
Dr. Nail.
Yeah.
Pleasure to have you.
So it's my alter ego. So the nutrition aspect, right? Everybody does it wrong. I'll just call it right there. Everybody does it wrong. And they don't do it wrong because they don't know. They do it wrong, they don't do it wrong because they want to do it wrong. They do it wrong because they don't know. Because for the last 60, 70 years, we've been taught nonsense and wrong information. So as a nutritionist, right? So I have a nutrition specialist certification. So I'm certified nutritionist. So in that coursework, you learn certain things, right? And those certain things that you learn are from old information, bad information, wrong information, from stuff that was not true, right? So the last 100 years, we have now we now consume more things that are not food than we do consume things that are food. So think about it this way. If it didn't exist 100 years ago, my general philosophy is if it didn't exist 100 years ago, don't eat it. Because it's probably made out of bullshit. It's probably made out of poison. It's probably made out of something that you probably shouldn't put in your body. And, the experts nowadays will say, well, there's no study that says that, for instance, right, inflammatory seed oils, linoleic acid. There's no study that shows that, seed oils are bad for you. And it's like, okay, let's look at this objectively, okay? Those studies are really, really short, right? And they're not done so really, really short. Let's just go with that first, right? So high linoleic acid. We know what linoleic acid does in your body. Linoleic acid is omega-6, right? So a high linoleic acid seed oil that is an industrial oil, not like linoleic acid from like a steak, right? It's different. It's a completely different thing because it hasn't been heated over 400 degrees. It hasn't been fucking washed with hexane. It hasn't been, bleached with chlorine. It hasn't been, because that's what canola oil is. Canola oil has been cut with hexane, which is a neurotoxin. It's been bleached with chlorine, all this stuff
Never
to make
heard that
it.
once, by the way.
Oh, dude, yeah. So in order to make that canola oil that's on the shelf, right? So that what that canola oil does, number one, it's highly inflammatory. So it activates all these inflammatory markers in your body. And we know that inflammation is the number one cause of everything. Every disease, every autoimmune issue, every issue that you've ever had, it's some form of inflammation. Right? It's an inflammation of certain cells. It's an inflammation of certain whatever, right? It's inflammation. So high linoleic acid seed oil is highly inflammatory. The second thing is linoleic acid gets into your mitochondria and it stays in your mitochondria for like 7 years and it deregulates them. The individual mitochondria. So mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? So the powerhouse of the cell is now deregulated. So your metabolism now will lower based on the amount of linoleic acid you're taking in, right?
When you say deregulated, what do you mean by that? It's not following
So
the normal protocol?
It doesn't follow the normal protocol. Yeah, so essentially it will slow the mitochondria's ability to burn fat down.
Oh.
So this is really interesting, right? This is anecdotal evidence, so there's no research on this whatsoever. But if anybody out there has the little thing right here that won't go away, turkey neck, right?
Neck, yeah.
Right. If you got some fat under here that just won't go away, no matter what body fat percentage you're at, stop eating seed oils for a couple weeks. Just a couple weeks. It'll fucking go away. And that's anecdotal.
Have you tested this a couple times?
Yes.
Really?
I tested it with Sean Pollard.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was like, dude, I stopped. And he's like, my fucking thing's gone.
No
And I was
kidding.
like, dude, I can't prove that on any level of research. But dude, if every single person I do it with, it works, then there's something there,
Yeah.
right? So when you talked about bro science, I think it's really funny because a lot of bro science is anecdotal evidence.
Right.
And with enough anecdotal evidence, if it works for me, if it works for you, if it works for him, if
Right.
it works for him, if it works for him, then it fucking works.
100%.
You know, I don't care if the study says it doesn't work because it works.
Yeah.
And this is the
Because
really
the studies oftentimes they have to go through so
Right.
many layers and so many
Right.
people like even experience, right? Someone else puts
Right.
their name on it. That wasn't even the
And
person that
this
was
is-
created.
yeah.
It's outdated like
Yep.
that.
And this is why research is so, you have to be so, you know, careful when you're reading research because number one, all research is biased. All of it is because it's paid for by somebody.
Someone wants something
right?
out of it.
Somebody wants something out
Yeah.
of it. Somebody wants a certain outcome out of it, right? The only research that isn't biased is anecdotal. I can't bias what happens to you and what happens to him and what happens to him and what happens to him and what happens to, right? I can't bias that. If I know for a fact that to build hypertrophy in your biceps, there's a really the best way to do it, right? The best movement and the best tempo and all this stuff, right? And the science tells me completely the opposite. But I've built more fucking guys with 20 plus inch arms using that technique. I'm still going to use that.
Can I touch on something with this?
Yeah.
Okay. So that brings me to, let's go to Jeff Nippard, right?
Sure.
His routine. One thing that I struggled with, which was completely new to me, which didn't make as much sense because it was contrary to, I guess it would be more the anecdotal bro science style.
Sure.
He does RPEs, which is basically where you're like, hey, if you're supposed to do 10 reps, you should, if it's RP of 7, you should have about 3 reps left in the tank, which is a weird concept because it's pretty hard to gauge exactly how many reps you have. RP 9, RP 10.
Yeah.
It was RP 5. It was, I was like, okay, I'm sticking to this, and I was doing it.
Yeah, the problem with rate of perceived exertion is that your rate of perceived exertion changes on a daily basis.
Exactly.
So
I never knew.
So you can change. I could change your, RPE 9 by the music that you listen to. I could change your RPE 9 by how well you're fed today. I could change and that's, it's a good and a bad thing, right? Because it's like, hey, go at a RPE 9 today. And
the idea was to go less and get the same result was the idea.
Right. But the problem is that it changes so much and it's so differing for each person that it's like nobody really knows what their RPE 8 is.
No.
Because most people could go way harder.
I found that out this week with Aaron.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, you think that's hard,
I've learned.
So when we talk about hypertrophy, right? Hypertrophy is the building of tissue, and this is really interesting, right? Let me make sure that we're good. So this is really interesting, right? So the building of tissue requires a couple things. It requires moderate amount of intensity. It requires time under tension, and it requires calorie surplus, right? In order to build and an insulin response, right?
Okay.
In order to build tissue. So if I wanted to build the bicep, right? If I want to build tissue in the bicep, right? I've got to break it down. So I've got to break it down with moderate intensity and time under tension of over 120 seconds over a, a set, right? So do the math there. That means my eccentric has to be 2 to 4 seconds. So 2 to 4 seconds, right? Negative. With moderate intensity. Well, what the fuck is moderate intensity? Moderate intensity is 70+% of your 1 rep max on a bicep curl. So do 12 reps with 70% of your 1 rep max with a 4-second eccentric.
Good luck.
That's how you build your biceps.
Yeah.
Good luck. Like most people can't do it because they don't have the mental capacity to go that hard. They don't understand that there is a threshold of what pain is and what, pain and injure.
And you
right?
can't go any further, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you can build, obviously you can build hypertrophy. There's 2 different types of hypertrophy too. There's sarcoplastic hypertrophy, and then there's myofibral hypertrophy too. And the way that I develop out muscle building programs is to focus on each one of those in a certain point of time, right? So sarcoplastic hypertrophy, basically we're making the muscle fibers that you have bigger. And then in myofibral hypertrophy, we are making more muscle fibers and denser muscle fibers. So you can look at it like this: volume and strength training, right? So essentially that's what it is. So volume is most of the time sarcoplastic hypertrophy, which is you're not building more motor units and more muscle fibers, you're just making them a little bit bigger. And then in strength training, you're building more motor units and denser muscle fibers and denser muscle fibers. So you have more of them.
Okay.
So that way, when I go back to hypertrophy training, I can make those bigger too. And then you go back and forth.
And is that like bouncing back between, call it time, because time under tension, at least from my experiences, I can't nearly hit the strength levels and the weight that I would be able to hit.
Yeah, is
that going back and forth between that and
and you can do
weight,
that.
like,
You can do that on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a yearly basis. Mesocycle or macrocycle, right? So mesocycle meaning like very short cycles. You could do a week of hypertrophy and then a week of strength training, or you could do 6 weeks of hypertrophy, 6 weeks of strength training. That's how you would continuously try to grow your muscle bigger, right? That's for that goal. If you want a goal of, big, strong, fast, hard to kill like everybody else wants, then there's a different way to do that too. So it's all I wouldn't even call it a science, because there's a lot of there's art to it too.
Yeah.
Because it comes to okay, when we look at you, there's going to be a different way to train you. And I'm sure Aaron has told you this too. There's going to be a different way to train you than there would be to train me. You have different muscle insertions. You have different, your body's built differently than mine. So there's a little tweaks that we can do for you that wouldn't work for me. Every body is the same until everybody isn't. So, there's a lot of nuance to it too, and there's a lot of art to it, and that's why experience is so important in every industry, especially in fitness. You can learn all you want out of the book. You can take the whole NASM book, the National Association of Sports Medicine book, and you could take somebody through their exact thing, and they're going to see a little bit of result, but what next?
Yeah.
What do you do next?
What's actually the next level?
And that's also for somebody who doesn't have any comorbidities, who doesn't have any injuries, who doesn't have any, it's that's a perfect scenario, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do when, and this is something that's interesting too, we help more people, and we didn't even do this on purpose, but we help more people with comorbidities and autoimmune issues and fucking people who have no legs, and people who have, I have a guy that has no legs. Both of his legs were cut off, but we still train him. And every other fucking trainer on the planet won't train those people because they're afraid. They're afraid. They're afraid because, not even afraid to hurt them, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's it's the same exact thing you do with somebody else. You take them through and you say, okay, cool. If you don't have those joints, right? Cool. We can't move through that joint range of motion anyways. So how would I train somebody like that, right? Well, I can still train their glutes and their hips, and I can still train their core, and I can still, you know what I'm saying? So it's it's just common sense to me, but I think a lot differently than I would say most people do, because I have I can't remember what it's called, which is kind of ironic that I can't remember what it's called, but I have almost a photographic memory. Gary Brecka talks about it. Gary Brecka has a photographic memory where he can look at somebody's license that he doesn't know for 2 seconds, put it away, and then 6 days later tell you what their address is. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But my brain can put things together, and I think I attested to the left side of my brain and my right side of my brain talking to each other more so than somebody else. Because the one side of your brain is, I don't remember which one it is, but left side of your brain is creative, right side of your brain is logic. And I think mine talks a little bit better. I think my left side and right side talk to each other a little bit better than a normal person, because I know how to take the science and make it art.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
I've listened to it firsthand. I wanted to touch on that part with the processed food, because when you're saying about no one really knows what they're talking about, they're just grabbing this data. I just wanted to bring up something too, because even for myself, the times in my life where I tried to get into really good, I was like, I want to get super shredded for various reasons. And when I actually worked with trainers, I ended up going down the route that everyone, including myself, until working with you guys and Aaron, put me down, which was chicken, rice, broccoli, egg whites, broccoli, and ground turkey. And I was terrified of that when I was going to start working with you guys, because here's the reason why, though. Because when I went down that path, yes, I got the results, meaning I got pretty shredded.
Sure.
But my energy levels were so low. My mental stamina was really low, and I was in a state where it's I felt like I almost had to nap just to stay alive, and I was constantly starving. And so I really did expect, when I went down this deep dive with you guys and with Aaron, I was like, okay, I'm going to be on this 5 to 6 meal a day thing. I'm going to be on this program. I've already gone through this program before. It's just going to be whatever portions you guys decide, right?
Sure.
I was that's the variability there. And I was going to go down this path, and it was going to be very difficult for me to uphold the energy levels that my, the business requires.
You were already prepared for it. It's crazy.
I was prepared. I was completely prepared for it. I was like, I'm gonna try going down this, and I was like, at least I have you guys to talk to if my energy's low, so we can make tweaks.
Sure.
And I've experienced the exact opposite because I'm not eating any of that stuff. I'm eating some of the rice, but I'm living on filet mignon. I'm living on salmon. I'm living on whole eggs. I'm living on Greek yogurt.
Don't tell the fitness people we're giving you whole eggs. It's taboo.
It was completely against the grain.
For some reason, egg yolks are taboo, even though that's where all of the fucking nutrients is in the egg.
I was afraid of eggs.
Yeah.
I was like, that's just not what I eat. That's not good for my body. That's the wrong thing. I need to get the cases of egg whites. And I used to just buy a case of egg whites.
Yeah.
I used to drink them, and you just don't feel good. I didn't feel energy.
Yeah, first of all,
I looked better.
The egg white thing is interesting too because you're gonna get some protein from it, right? And more protein is always better.
Yeah.
But they're pasteurized too, so that means they're boiled. So there's nothing in there. It's just arbitrary protein. So there's no nutrient value whatsoever, like at all. There's no nutrients at all, like except for some protein, and then stuff they add back into it, which is, part of the problem because those vitamins aren't bioactive or bioavailable. Anything that's added back in, especially folate nowadays, when folate's added back in, it's fucking poisonous to us. It's like, it's not good for you. Most people can't methylate their vitamins and nutrients anymore. So it's like, we have such a problem now with nutrient deficiencies in America that the reason why we have people eat the way that we do is to combat nutrient deficiencies. That's it. It's to get you to a certain like body composition, but really the trick is that if we correct all the deficiencies, the body composition will be there. Well, because human beings are supposed to be fit and strong. They're not supposed to be fat and unhealthy. And you know what I'm saying?
So, well, I got convinced down the line, I don't know when this all happened, but I got convinced that a macro is a macro is a macro. A protein is a protein. A carb is a carb. A fat is a fat.
Sure.
A vitamin is a vitamin. I mean, if you're getting vitamin A here, vitamin C here, it's all the same thing. I got convinced that it didn't really matter. I actually went against some people. I'm like, no, why would I not just get it this way? It's easier and there's less of this. And I used to get all of my vitamins, all of my nutrition, everything from sources that weren't, as I think you put it, like, what is it,
bioactive and
bioactive. I didn't really believe that or think that. I got convinced that it was just the numbers, right? It was just the macros. Like, you could eat whatever cereal and peanut, whatever you wanted to hit the macros, and you're good.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that's become such a common belief. It's really one of the most common beliefs I hear, because people talk about tracking macros, which sounds like they're on the right path, but the reality of it is it's filled with a bunch of garbage.
You can blame. Really, we can all blame not Ansel Keys, but Edward Bernays. He was
we have the person to blame.
Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Oh, no kidding.
For what we believe when it comes to food. He was a propagandist, and he is the guy who propagandized bacon as a breakfast food. He was the same guy who propagandized like smoking cigarettes for women. It was like, because before, like, I don't remember what the year was, but Edward Bernays made it cool for women to smoke cigarettes. Like, they didn't smoke before, like, women didn't smoke before a certain, like, year. It was like 1950 something. They didn't do it. Edward Bernays was a propagandist, and he propagandized all these things back in the 50s and 60s, and it's the reason why we believe a lot of the stuff we believe now. He helped develop the, like, modern fucking nutritional pyramid.
Oh, no kidding.
Like, look at the pyramid, the, like, food pyramid right now. What's the whole bottom of the food pyramid? Wheat, corn. It's all of the things that, it's all the things that we have abundance in like farming. It's industrialized farmed goods. And the top of the pyramid now, all the way at the top, and the little corner is meat. And it's like, hold on a second. We've eaten the same way for hundreds of thousands of years, and now you're going to tell me that, no, the vast majority of my diet should come from corn and wheat? And I know for a fact that corn does not break down in your body at all. It's fucking anti-nutrient. It does not break down at all.
Chipotle has proven that, and I've been the test subject.
Listen, I want everybody to try this. Take one corn kernel, right? And chew it up as much as you want. Out of the can of corn, right? The little yellow piece of corn. Chew it up as much as you want. Into mush in your mouth. And then look in the toilet the next day. It'll be a whole corn kernel in your shit. I've done it. I've done it with a single corn. Chew it up as much as you want. Your body can't do anything with it. So it reconstitutes in your gut somehow, and you shit out a whole corn kernel. Your body doesn't use it. That's why it's funny when people say corn-fed. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've been called corn-fed before.
Yeah,
You're a big
yeah.
guy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what does that mean? It doesn't mean shit. It's an anti-nutrient.
It's supposed to mean you're fed
If you
good,
only
right?
ate corn, you'd be skinny and like,
Yeah.
you know. So it's kind of funny. But no, that's why I say you can't really blame people for not knowing, because we've been propagandized all this stuff. We've been told for years and years and years and years and years that, no, this is the way that we're supposed to eat. 3 meals a day. It's like, thanks, Edward Bernays. We never ate 3 meals a day before it became 3 meals a day, right? Mm-hmm. Who the fuck made that up? Oh, Edward Bernays was a part of that shit too, right? So it's like,
you tapped into everything, huh?
dude, I don't. The craziest thing is it's propaganda.
Just basically like the old time. That's a propaganda marketer.
He also helped with Reefer Madness.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was paid to help. What the hell's that guy's name? The guy that owned He owned the newspaper, but he owned like trees, right? And they were going to use hemp for paper, and he was like, "Well, we can't have that, so let's call hemp," which was really funny that hemp is a completely different plant. Yeah. But let's call it Mexican weed, and say that it makes people rape people. So that's where Reefer Madness came from.
No kidding.
Yeah. Because they were going to use hemp. Like Henry Ford was making cars out of hemp before that, and like shit was made out of hemp.
Yeah.
It's all propaganda. It's all propaganda, which is one of the reasons why I don't blame people for not knowing about nutrition, and especially in nutrition, because it's all propaganda. When I tell people that when I was 312 pounds doing strongman and I only ate once a day, maybe twice a day, they're like, "There's no way. You had to have been eating 6, 7, 8 times." I'm like, nope. And I wasn't really eating that much either. It's like, no, it's not. I was eating nutrient dense food though.
Yeah. That's what I've noticed is the difference is that, I'm 230. So, I was used to eating a lot more, almost double, maybe triple the calories I'm eating now.
Yeah.
But underweight. And if I ever restricted that before, based on what I was already going to eat in those times I did eat, which is how I try to balance it out. Sometimes I'll just eat less the next day if I felt like I got too deep on Cold Stones or pizza, pasta, right? That was like my, brain trying to I know how to neutralize this problem, this threat.
Yeah, just not eat today.
I'd be starving. And now, eating a lot less, I think I talk about it every day because it's literally so shocking to me that I feel so nourished. I feel so energized. I feel enthused. I feel like my inflammation is gone. I've recovered from a gnarly back injury the other week, like in a day, which I had a very similar back injury, back in college, and it took me like 1 to 2 weeks to get back on my feet and to really be able to move around. And 2 days later, I'm back in the gym.
The interesting part is that, again, what have we been taught for 40, 50, 60, 70 years, right? About anything. It's like, oh, if you're injured, you have to go to your doctor and you have to do all this. It's like, no. The body is really adaptable.
Yeah.
Like I talk about, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about is adaptability of human beings. We are so fucking adaptable because of this principle called the SAID principle. Did we talk about this before? So the SAID principle is specific adaptation to impose demands.
Specific adaptation
to impose demands. Yeah. So it's this principle that says that the human body will adapt to no matter what situation you put it in, right? If you're cold, you shiver to warm yourself up. If you're hot, you sweat. If you're in a place where, if you live below the equator for a long period of time, you're going to have more melanin in your skin. If you eat garbage all the time, you're going to get fat. If you eat really good, you're going to look really good. If you insert this, you're going to get this out of it. That's specific adaptation to impose demands. You can literally change the adaptation of your body by the demands that you're giving it, right? So that's why I tell people, like, don't ever be mad at your body for where it is right now because you did that. You just have to give your body different input. You just give your body different input. Most of the time, the input is eat a little bit less, eat a little bit better, move a little bit more, be a little bit more mindful. That's it. So, you asked me about
simplifies.
It's simple. Yeah, it's very, very simple. If you're a little bit mindful, so there's levels of fitness, right? So, level 1 is what I call like the mindfulness level, right? It's something that's like, I know I need to eat better. That's the mindfulness level. And that's where everybody should start. Everybody should start with just like,
I'm aware.
I'm aware that I'm unhealthy and I need to do something about it, right? And then there's level 2 where it's like, okay, now let's start with, some education. It's like, okay, now maybe follow a program or, maybe I'll do a diet, right? Maybe I'll do carnivore or keto or, I'll go paleo or whatever. That's level 2. Cool. Find
Sounds
out,
like experiment.
experiment. Find out what works for you, right? Level 3 is hire somebody, hire an expert, right? Hire an expert. Follow something that's been designed for you, you know. So those are the first 3 levels, and most people try to, especially nowadays, they try to skip those first 3 levels and go to level 4 and 5. Level 4 is like blood work and fucking peptides and, you know, stuff like that. Level 5 is like biohacking, like, and I would put things in level 5 like, you know, ice baths and oxygen therapy and red light therapy and all this stuff that everybody's doing first, and they're not doing those first 3 yet.
So good. So
You know,
true.
I get asked about peptides. I don't know how many times a day
By people that should not be
by
asking
people
about
that should
peptides.
not be asking about peptides. They're like, "Oh
They
yeah,
should be
but I
asking about
heard
food
that."
right now.
And I'm like, "Yeah, cool. What's your diet look like?" And they're like, "Well, you know, I'm on and off this and that." I'm like, "All right, cool. Get consistent on your diet for 6 months, and then we can talk about it. Like, I'll educate you on it, but like, you shouldn't be ordering fucking, you know, GW 5056. Like, you shouldn't be doing that yet. You know, there's zero reason to do, you know, to like what that's a SARM, but like SARMs, peptides, like this stuff all gets roped into like the first 3 categories. It's like, no. You don't need to worry about that yet. Like, you need to be a little bit more mindful. You need to like experiment with stuff and maybe hire a professional.
Yeah.
You know, those first 3 things right there will get you further than like 90% of the world when it comes to health and longevity and nutrition. And then once you are consistent, and I just posted this thing about consistency earlier because I think a lot of people don't understand consistency. Like, you don't have a consistency problem right now because you consistently are doing the wrong things. You have a discipline problem, and then you have a problem getting stuck in the discipline motivation loop. So there's a couple different levels here, right? There's levels to everything. So you don't have a consistency problem. You have a consistently doing the wrong thing problem, right?
Yeah.
So if you are obese, you have a consistent problem of overeating. It's not genetic. It's not. There are zero, and this is such a fucking...
That's kind of like the AA thing almost, right? It's like you label yourself as, this is my genetics.
Dude, and people say that without understanding what the hell they're talking about. So they're like, oh, well, you know, I got hypertension because my dad's got hypertension. I'm like, that's not how that works. It's not how that works at all.
I would have bought that.
There are zero genetic, like, there are 0 genes that you could turn on or off that are going to give you hypertension. Like, none. There are none. There are no genetic variants for comorbidities like diabetes and hypertension and obesity, and there's none. There are gene expressions that can say, hey, you might be more susceptible to vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah.
And vitamin D deficiency can lead to certain things, but it's not the genes that are causing the problem, right? So, for instance, right?
And how many people have heard that and they figure out, they think that they're predisposed to this thing that's going to happen. It's inevitable and it's become part of them. So, they're like, this is just me, right? That's where it gets to.
You identify with it,
yeah,
right?
100%.
And this is a really interesting topic for, you know, a whole other podcast we could do on this. Is just straight up belief, right?
Yeah.
If you believe something's going to happen, it's going to fucking happen. There's a study they did with maids. They took maids out of this hotel. They took, I think it was 100 maids, and they took 50 of them, and they were all obese, you know, most of them like Spanish, you know, maids, and most of them were obese and overweight, but they walk like 50,000 steps a day, bending and lifting and all this shit, right? And they did their, like, a test on them to see how many calories they were burning and all that stuff. And they were all in calorie deficit. So why the fuck aren't you losing weight? So they took 50 of them, put them in a room, and just told them that. They said, hey, this is the amount of activity you're doing a day. Like, that's a lot of exercise. Like, you guys are getting a lot of exercise. Here's what exercise does for your body. And here's what, you know, they didn't tell them to do more. They just educated them on, oh shit, I'm doing a lot of exercise, right? The other 50, they didn't do anything, right? They followed them for another 6 weeks. The 50 maids, all 50 of them, the 50 maids that got educated on what they should believe about being fit, lost on average of 40 pounds in 6 weeks. And they didn't change anything. All they changed was they got a little bit of education on what they should believe.
Then where's this calorie deficit, caloric intake is the only thing that matters, apply to this notion?
So with that,
Because by the way, I just want to point out one thing. Like, I went through this experience myself, not losing 40 pounds as a maid, but
Yeah.
the,
Oh,
the
really?
experience I went through was I got into this little stint where I was 75 hard, Andy Frisella, and I took it balls to the walls,
Yeah.
and I was working out hard every morning, and then at night I started running 10 miles every night.
Yeah.
Every single night, like well past breaking point, just chug along, became bionic man. And after that, I had a hernia surgery before, right above my belly button. Got that resolved in college, and I was feeling this pain in my groin for a while. It was so bad, it was like really painful to get up in the morning from my bed. I couldn't do any abs, and abs was my thing. So not being able to do abs, I was like, I'm losing my identity here. This is not cool. Like, this is what people used to know me for.
Yeah.
Can't not have it.
Yep.
And so I felt this pain on everything, on pull-ups. It was really bad, and I was convinced that it was a hernia. And I was like, I'm too busy working to get hernia surgery. I just not the time. So I ended up eventually going to a doctor. I went to the doctor, and they checked it out. And I kind of told them what I just was convinced I just needed you to set me up to get the surgery with this person. I basically was telling them that. And they're like, yeah. And they like feeling like, okay, we're going to put you this so you can go get your, surgery and get the hernia taken care of, yada, yada. Well, I got busy with work, so I never got to that point. And then I lost the thing. So I went back to that same place. I got a different doctor. I explained my same belief to this doctor, and the doctor's feeling around. He's like, I don't think that's a hernia. I'm like, wait. What do you mean you don't think this? This is a. He's like, no. I was like, have you ever done any rehab or anything on this area? I'm like, what do you mean it's a hernia? He's like, no. I was like, I really don't think. He's like, here's what I think it is, and it was like this frayed muscle. He like showed me this example of this really frayed muscle group, and I was like, my belief switched right then and there. I'm like, wait, I can try to fix this thing. So I didn't go to the rehab thing because I don't like to go to therapy. I was like, I'm just YouTubing it, like how to resolve this issue. And I started doing these little exercises, like squeezing my legs together with this thing between my feet, all these little things. I started doing it. Within a week, it was feeling better. Within 6 weeks, it was like, less than that, like 4 weeks.
Was it a frayed iliopsoas?
That's like, it was something like that. It was something
Yeah.
frayed. He showed me like a picture of and the picture got me to understand it and what it could look like and what it did look like, what he imagined it looking like. And then all of a sudden, within a month or so, like I was able to do abs again. I felt good again, and it all went away. But I lived in this one belief for so long, and it kept it there forever. So I've experienced exactly what you're talking about. And it's kind of scary what happens if you believe the wrong thing, even if you think it is the accurate, correct thing.
It's really, our brains are so powerful. And again, this goes back into the SAID principle. Our brain is part of this, right? And there was a study that you can't find anywhere. I found it in like an old book from like 1941. And it's a study from Russia. And they told this lady that she had cancer when she didn't. And in 2 days, she developed cancer. It's the nocebo effect, right? She believed that she had cancer, so she got cancer. You can't find this anywhere. There's a couple articles that say it was debunked or whatever, but they've done other studies like this on belief, right?
Yeah.
And there's a really interesting one that was done on people that actually did have cancer, and they told them that they had, hey, we have this this treatment that is like 100%, like it'll cure you, and we have this treatment, and you're good for it. We're going to treat you with this treatment. And 40-something% of the people who were told that went into remission the next day without the treatment, because there was no treatment. They just told them that. So like 40-something%, I think it was 46 or 47% of the patients went into remission because they just believed that they were going to get a treatment that worked. That's why all pharmaceutical drugs are tested against the placebo effect.
Yeah.
And they have to be like, they have to be 40-something% as effective as placebo. And you're like, hold on a second. If placebo works, let's fucking talk about that.
Wow.
You know what I mean? If I believe it's going to happen,
Wait,
and
they
it
have
happens,
to just be 40% as effective as placebo for it to go into the next step.
Yeah, for the FDA to approve it, yeah.
So they basically have to pass, like, I just believe this thing works test. It has to get one level beyond that.
Yeah, have to pass the sugar pill test. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Dude, that ties to everything we keep talking about, which is this whole belief aspect.
Belief is everything. If you, the more you can visualize something happening, the more likely it is going to happen, right? And the more ways you can visualize it too. This is what I was talking to with you guys yesterday. It's like, write it down, read it out loud, and then write it in your own words, then read that out loud. And then that's how you make something a reality, right? So it's the same for, healing your body. Like, you can't, and this is, we'll get a little convoluted, but it's like if I got like these cuts on my fingers, right? I cut my fingers open the other day, and the first thought that you have when you cut your fingers open is how, and this sounds really stupid, but when I cut my fingers open, I was like, nope, they're not cut that bad. It's not going to be that bad because I need my hands. I need to know. That's immediately the thought process that I was in.
Yeah.
And they're almost healed, and it's only been 2 days.
Maybe that's how it happened with my back.
And that's how I've always, like, that's how I've always been with stuff. It's like, no. No, that's not how this is going to go. I'm not going to be 180 days in bed with my last back surgery that I had, to put a metal plate in there and shit. Like, it's not what it's going to be. It's not going to be that. And it's never been that. Because I believe differently. Like, I just believe differently. And it's so funny when, it's like, well, you can't just believe your way to stuff. It's like The Secret, right? That book, The Secret or whatever, where it's like, oh, if you believe it, you can achieve it. That's not what it is. The belief begets action. Right? And then the action brings more belief, and then the belief brings more action, and that action brings more belief. So when you believe that you didn't have a hernia, you started taking action on it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Damn.
You took action on it. You were actionably doing something.
Yes.
Now to your brain, right? Your brain is like, oh, we can heal that area. So now I'm going to send more blood flow there. I'm going to send more nutrients there. I'm going to send more stem cells there. I'm going to send right? All these things that weren't happening because you had the expectation that you were going to go have surgery to get it fixed.
100%.
That's why a lot of orthopedic surgeons now for like shoulder issues, they're just having people hang on a bar. That's it. If you have some sort of a shoulder injury and you're not hanging from a bar for 30 seconds to a minute every day, you're like really doing a disservice to yourself.
Because that could solve it.
It could solve it.
But are they actually saying go do this instead of getting surgery? Don't they want more surgeries?
Well, some good orthopedic surgeons are saying that. Yeah, not all of them. So. Yeah.
I was going to say last topic.
Let's go.
Because I know you got to rip it too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on something that I think everybody can apply, something that I think that is beyond important, and I know you can do a great job of simplifying and explaining the why behind each one.
Okay.
But that is sleep.
Okay.
What does it take? Say you're running 1,000,000 miles an hour, right? And that's in business because we have so many people in the company, and I know this is the same way here that, they're on blitzes. They're working from 9 a.m. till dark. They're getting up early to go to the gym. These people are like, I think it's just called playing all out. They're just playing all out in life. They're not sacrificing any of their time for anything that's going to not benefit them.
Sure.
And then sleep, right? I think sleep is this factor, and I've noticed this because we do a lot of we call blitzes, which is basically when we're deployed in our own civilian way.
Yeah.
We're deployed and we don't, we're not home, right? And we're just in this world where we just live this life every single day, 7 days a week.
Yep.
And so they're deployed, but I think the one thing I've noticed happen between successful blitzes and unsuccessful blitzes, it's the guys that start staying up really late. They start watching TV more at the end of the night. They start thinking that they can do all this and then they can live this kind of nightlife. And then the next morning still be excited for the gym and energized. And, maybe it works for the first week, but then all of a sudden they just start to look like they're dying. And I've always been able to avoid that. And it's really because I value the sleep and the sleep discipline, and I'll just walk away and tell everyone to turn their TV off, and I'm pretty this is what you got to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think my explanation of what we need to do for sleep is good enough. I think
Yeah.
your explanation is
How
what
much-
the people
how much time
need
do
to
we
hear.
Yeah.
just
So
slang it.
sleep is absolutely important. Sleep is, if you could bottle up sleep and put it into a pill, it would be more, it would be worth more than any drug ever.
Yeah.
If I could take sleep as a pill, I would be a fucking addict. Because sleep is not only restorative to your body, it's restorative to your brain. It helps you heal. It's the only, when you don't sleep, your brain, like we talked about yesterday, your brain will start getting overloaded with amyloid beta plaque, which is the plaque that builds up in your brain while you're awake, right? So what a lot of people say is just 8 hours of sleep no matter what. And it's well, that's not realistic to somebody in your industry. That's not realistic to my industry. That's not realistic to, business owners and entrepreneurs, which is who we target a lot, especially in our business. We target business owners and entrepreneurs. And, for instance, I'll use an example, right? Sean Pollard, the VP of the Elliott group here, he was in a build phase and he was not sleeping. He was sleeping 2 hours a night. He was, just whatever. He was it was a real detriment to him. And he came to me and he asked me about it. And I said, okay, Sean, here's what we're going to do. we're going to put you on a very controversial sleep cycle. We're going to put you on the Uberman sleep cycle, right? And it's going to be modified Uberman, because I've done this before. It's like, okay, everything else in your day-to-day has to be perfect, though. I need you hitting certain nutrient goals. I need you eating enough protein. I need you taking your creatine. I need you, I gave him the list of stuff that I needed him to do on the back end, right? I said, I need you to be low stress. I know that's hard in the build phase right now, but I need no stress. Like, if your wife's stressing you out, go to a hotel, like, for this phase. Like, if whatever it is, I need these metrics to be perfect, and we can do an Uberman sleep cycle, a modified one, right? So the modified Uberman sleep cycle we did with him was sleep for 2 hours, get up, work for 4. Sleep for 2 hours, get up, work for 4, right? We did that for a little bit, and then we did an even more modified one where he was taking 20-minute naps a couple times a day, and that's it.
What?
Yeah. I would never do this long term, but used as a tool, you can do it, because if you do it the right way, a 26-minute nap can put you into REM sleep, clear your brain of amyloid beta plaque. Like 26 minutes is like the time your brain needs to like reset itself, right? So we did this stuff for him, and the reason why I mentioned that is because there's always a way to manipulate, right? There's always a way to manipulate the human body to get more work out of it and still not put it at a detriment.
Right.
He was energetic. He was focused. He wasn't tired. All these things. I don't recommend anybody do that, but because, obviously he had experts like helping him out with it. I don't recommend anybody does that on their own, but there's a point to quality, right? So the sleep quality he was getting was very high. When he was getting 26-minute naps, the quality was very high. And again, here's a trick that the tech companies do, right? They have nap pods. Why do they have nap pods? Because most of those people are on Uberman sleep cycles. They go and they nap for 26 minutes, and then they go back to work for 4 to 6 hours. And
they're on that?
Yeah. A lot of them are. A lot of them are on LSD too, but it's a different story, right? So, the whole name of the game when it comes to sleep is quality. If you're getting 6 hours, make sure it's good quality sleep. The less sleep you get, the more everything else in your life has to be perfect. Right? And that's not the way people look at it. When people get less sleep, everything else in their life falls apart.
Right.
Right? You can do it. You can do 6 hours of sleep. Why do you think Arnold can sleep for 6 hours a night? Everything else in his life is perfect. He has no stress. He has no
Dude, no one's ever explained this like this, by the way.
Yeah, he has a routine. Like, the less put together your life is, the more sleep you're going to need, because you're not getting restorative sleep, right? You're not getting the 4 to 6 REM cycles you need. The REM cycles aren't increasing every time, right? So if your job is conducive to a 6-hour sleep cycle, right? If you need 6 hours of sleep, then we have to dial in the sleep more, right? I would suggest doing like a sleep cocktail, and I can tell you guys about a sleep cocktail. Not like an actual cocktail, not like booze, but like it's a sleep cocktail that I came up with.
That sounds exciting.
It's pretty cool. You'll sleep really good.
Oh, can I try it tonight? Is that a thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So sleep in a room and I went over some of this with you guys yesterday. Sleep in a room that's like 62 to 65 degrees, more on the colder end.
And why is that? Because I've heard that. And
optimal sleep comes at that temperature.
Okay.
So when we've done sleep studies and stuff like that, your optimal sleep, the best restorative sleep comes when it's that temperature, ambient, not, you can still wear the blanket, but it's like ambient room temperature, right?
I think it's the one thing just a quick question on that one is when people then say it's like, oh, it's too cold. Like my girl says it's like too cold.
Sorry.
So it's just like, I know I need this. I know this is the right temperature.
So you can go up to like 68 degrees,
Okay.
Get more blankets. Okay. Wear a hoodie. You know what I mean? Sleep. And here's something a lot of people don't like to hear. If you want optimal sleep, you should not sleep next to somebody. Like, if you want optimal restorative sleep, you should have separate rooms.
You hear that, Michelle?
Like,
we got the guest bedroom.
Yeah. Like, and that's here's the thing, right? How deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Right.
Most people, they're like, no, I'm going to sleep next to my wife.
Yeah,
we're
not going that deep.
It's like, okay, cool. Well, let's do all these other things. Let's make sure there's no TV in your room. There should not be a TV in your bedroom. Like, there's no reason to have a TV in your bedroom. If you want to watch TV, go to the living room, right? You shouldn't have any like blue light in your room at all. You shouldn't do work in your room at all. You should only do 2 things in your room: sleep and fuck, right? It's the only 2 things you should ever do in your bedroom. And Hear that, Michelle? So the point of this whole thing, this whole rant is equality.
Yeah.
So the more sleep you're able to get, right? Normally I get 7 hours. That's my normal. I like going to sleep early because I like being up early.
Yeah.
And I feel really, really good when I get 7 hours of sleep. Can I operate on 5 for short periods of time for a couple weeks at a time? Yeah. But I have to dial everything else in. I have to, dial in even the amount of screen time that I get. I have to dial in, which is really hard because usually at that time we're in a build phase in the company. Right. We're locked in, And then the other side of this too, especially as a business owner or entrepreneur, there's a trade-off. What do you want to build and how big do you want to build it? Mm-hmm. There is a trade-off. Understanding that you can't ever get sleep back, right? Just understanding that where it's like, okay, there's no catching up on sleep.
Okay.
Let's
go down that.
Yeah, there's no catching up on sleep. If I miss sleep on Sunday, I can't catch up on Monday, no matter what. That's just not the way that it works, right? It's actually better for you to jump right back into your routine. So if you only sleep 3 hours, still wake up at the same time, because that's better for your body in the long term than sleeping in till 9 or 10. So if you wake up at 5 every morning, and this is really important for your circadian rhythm and shit like that, is to wake up at the same time every day. So if I gave one piece of advice for sleep that everybody could implement right now, is wake up at the same time every day. I don't care what time it is, if it's 10 o'clock, if it's 9 o'clock, if it's 4 o'clock, if it's 2:45 a.m., whatever it is, wake up at the same time every day, because that is going to set your circadian rhythm in lock. That will lock in what your circadian rhythm is, and that will keep your hormone spikes where they're supposed to be. That'll keep your blood pressure where it's supposed to be over the day. That will keep your body operating the way that it's supposed to be over the period that you're awake.
I've gotten to the point where I'm, I stopped setting alarms just because it was almost like the act of setting the alarm made me have some tension when I went to bed. And sometimes I'd wake up middle of the night, oh, it's late. Cause again, build mode, right? Yep. So my biggest fear is to not do the things I need to do every day and not get to the gym on time, because that leads to everything else.
I don't use an alarm.
So no alarm. And I've been just regularly waking up right around within 15 to 20 minutes at the same time every single morning. Yep. And then the same thing is here, 15, 20 minutes at the same time, but 3 hours earlier. So here I've been waking up at 3:30, 3:40 every single morning.
Yeah, really important. Just get up.
Yeah,
just get up.
That's what I've been rolling with.
Go to sleep a little bit earlier. Just get up.
Just get up.
Or
So you don't roll with the alarm either.
No.
Is there a period of time where people need to roll with the alarm to get that initial setup?
If they need the discipline.
Yeah.
If you're getting enough sleep, you don't need an alarm.
Yeah.
Anybody who's, I'll just sleep right through the thing, and it's well, there's a deficiency somewhere then. You have a deficiency somewhere. You should not sleep you should not be asleep for 12 hours straight. There's something wrong with you. We need to look at blood work. We need to look at what your activity levels are. We need to look at things, because there's no reason that your body should be asleep for 12 hours unless you're a baby. Babies sleep for 12 hours.
Yeah.
If you're a kid, you need a little bit more sleep, right? Kids need more sleep. As an adult, 6 to 9 hours, right? As a baby, 11, 12 hours is pretty normal, because your body is still building.
Yeah.
Your brain is still developing. So as the brain develops, there's more plaque buildup because your brain is developing. There's more activity going on, right? So you need a little bit more sleep. But.
And last thing, I just got to know this because I'm going to try this tonight. I'm getting a massage this evening, by the way. I feel like I need it. I feel like that kind of puts me to sleep too.
Yeah, sleep cocktail. So you might not have all the ingredients to do this, but 4 ounces of 100% tart cherry juice. So not from concentrate, tart cherry.
Okay.
You will do 3,000 milligrams. 3,000 milligrams of glycine.
Got that.
1,000 milligrams of inositol.
Don't have that.
Which is a sugar that your body makes, but 1,000 milligrams of inositol. And then you'll take all that, right? And then you'll tape your mouth. Put a nose strip on to open up your nasal passageway. Get your room completely pitch black and put binaural beats on your phone on the other side of the room.
That's the sleep cocktail.
And you'll sleep like a fucking champ.
Is it you're going to fall asleep fast, or is it you're going to sleep well?
Both, yeah. And you'll probably lucid dream too. Probably be able to control your dream that night too.
So I think we got to leave this thing with the tagline, guys. What's the tagline right now for all this information? You're gonna put that in.
Oh, the tagline. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
No, really. If you were
yeah.
gonna leave everybody with one last
Yeah.
thing to go home with, they're just like, dude, if you just, we had a lot of things. If you just do this, you know, you're gonna be in a pretty
Yeah.
good spot. What's one last thing or one thing that maybe you should just stop doing?
Yeah.
That maybe is common practice because of misinformation. I don't like that word anymore, but I hate
That's
that
a
word
whole
now,
nother
but-
podcast, though. So
Just one
honestly, here's what I would say to everybody: is find something you believe in and attach yourself to it. Honestly, like whatever it doesn't have to be our program. It doesn't have to be Spartan Solar. It doesn't have to be. Find your tribe and build your own tribe, because connecting with people and connecting with like-minded alignment, right? Being aligned with people is going to make you more healthy than anything. If you're around healthy people, you become more healthy, right? So that's what I would, leave everybody with.
What a way to freaking end it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah, man. Thanks. How long did we go?
See you guys.
Back
Just one
in, we
last
got more
thing.
shit.
One
to
last
talk
thing.
about.
Come
Yeah,
on,
hold
drop
on.
that
Dr.
stuff.
Nail's coming
All right,
in.
doctor.
So the best way to do cardio to ensure that you are burning the most calories from fat, right? And this could be a whole podcast on its own, but walking is the absolute best way to burn fat. Walking targets fat more so than running, more so than HIIT, more so than anything. So HIIT and running might burn more calories, but those calories are, 60 to 70% not from fat. They're from glycogen and from muscle tissue. And walking is like 90% fat. Like walking is mostly fat burning, right? So here's a cool way to ensure that you are burning the most calories that you possibly can, taking a 20 to 30 minute walk on a treadmill. Put the treadmill at a little bit of an incline, 4, 5, up to 10. 10's kind of extreme for most people, but 4 or 5, right? Let's say 5. And then read a book while you're doing it. But read a book that's teaching you something, like personal development or even like a textbook or something like that. It's super fucking boring, right? But read something that you're learning, information that you've never had before, because the harder your brain works to learn, because when your brain is learning, it's operating, it's doing stuff, right? Your brain uses a lot of energy to do that. So if you went to college, right? Mm-hmm. So for instance, take a class that you learned a lot in, right? Were you exhausted afterwards?
Big time. Especially after going to like a
a lab
I didn't really
or something like that.
A lot, but I went to these tutoring zones where you just cram for 2 hours to learn everything they taught over the last like 6 weeks. And after it's just you're white.
You're exhausted because your brain is burning so much energy, right? Yeah. Where do you think it's getting that energy from? Your brain burns glucose, right? But where does it get that glucose from? From ketones, from fat. So your brain is burning mostly fat anyways. So learn something while you're on the treadmill. So I don't know what the increase in percentage is, but you're going to be burning more fat, right? And then while you're doing that also, do breath work. So do any type of box breathing, right? In through the nose, out through the mouth, mindful breathing, because fat, when it oxidizes, it gets expelled as carbon dioxide. That's how fat is burned. So if you can optimize that pathway and then also optimize the brain doing that and then doing the walking, you're going to burn way more fat.
People reading the books while they're on the treadmill were out of their mind.
Yeah, dude, they're going to burn more fat. It's going to be more efficient,
man.
right? I like stuff that's effective and efficient.
Yeah. Well, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
2 minutes ago, it made no sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. There's all kinds of shit like that, man. There's like there's all kinds of ways to make something more efficient, make something more optimal, make something more, So, last thing I want to leave everybody with, last thing for now. We're going to do round 2. I've been asked many a time what type of a speaker I am, right? And I had keynote on my thing for a little while. I had motivational speaker. I've had all that stuff, right? I've had educator. I've had all that stuff, and none of it really resonates. And I wanna just like leave everybody with this.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, I think you're a disruptor.
I like disruptor a lot, and that's my whole goal.
I think you're a disruptor because you're disrupting everything I was ingrained in my brain from nothing I really actually learned.
My whole goal with the fitness industry is to disrupt the entire industry. But I am an executional speaker, and I guarantee you've never heard that term before because it doesn't mean anything. I made it up, right? I made this fucking completely up. It doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. I looked it up. I was like, executional. That sounds cool as fuck, right? But when I speak to you, I'm trying to get you to execute on stuff, right? I'm not trying to motivate you. I'm not trying to move you in a certain way. I'm trying to make you execute on certain things. So I fucking coined that. Now it's on my Instagram page.
Dude, I'm with it.
Executional speaker.
Because I've heard some of the same things you've said.
Yeah.
Like, meaning just the practice, the act of, right? Maybe it's sleeping in cold rooms, whatever it may be. There's just things you've said that I've heard, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But the way you explain it, the way you, again, you use both sides of your brain, the right and the left, the logic and the creative, to then deliver a message to me and to everyone around you, where you're like, oh, fuck, I didn't think about it like that. And this is actually just, something I never heard before. And when your brain hears something it hasn't heard before, it really fucking tunes in. Mm-hmm. And if it's especially it's about something it's heard about, but it's never heard it explained this way, and it disrupts that. So that's the
what's happening right there is you're creating a neural pathway, right? So you're creating you've now learned, right? And by executing on that thing that you learned, like I could motivate you all day long, right? Motivation is going to fire neurons, right? And then you get motivated, right? I'm going to get motivated to do this thing. But then it kind of falls away and it stops. It like slows down, right? When I now can take you through a talk and make you execute on something, or make you want to execute on something, as soon as you execute it, that little pathway now gets wrapped in myelin. So like I've now forced you to change, and you don't even know it.
Oh, I
that's
know,
that's
I
why
know
but I
know
what I'm saying. Yeah, that's
like,
don't tell anybody.
What's going on?
Don't fucking tell anybody. But now, so it's the same thing that happens like with memories and stuff like that. The more you do something, the more time. So this is a really cool example. Fuck, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole. It's a really cool example. See that door handle over there?
Yeah.
You know exactly what to do with that door handle, right?
Yeah.
How many times do you think you've opened a door?
A lot.
A lot of times,
a
right?
lot.
So that knowledge of that and that skill of opening a door handle, that is a fucking neural pathway in your brain. And it is wrapped so tightly and so fucking like hard with myelin that you will never forget that. Unless you get Alzheimer's or some side of neurodegenerative disease or something like that to break down the myelin, and you can actually forget how to use a door. But it'll take a lot because there's so much fucking myelin protein around that neural pathway because you've done it so many times and now it's unconscious. The more myelin that gets wrapped around a neuron, the more unconscious that thing is. So when you first start driving, right? 10 and 2, fucking traffic. Why are you going so fast, right? Now, I don't even remember driving to work.
Me neither.
Like, that's really like crazy to think about, right? Does anybody remember driving to work?
Blacked out the whole time.
Like, yeah. So here's a cool thing, right? A little trick that you can take to bulletproof your brain is mindfulness. And nobody talks about it like this. And this is a way that mindfulness can actually help bulletproof your brain. Next time you drive to work, be mindful about the whole thing.
Okay.
Right? Just how the steering wheel feels, who's around you, what kind of cars are around you. Are there any cops? Like whatever. Just be mindful about where you're going. Be mindful about the whole drive. Just try to stay in tune the whole drive. You're going to be more on fire that day than you've ever been ever. Because your brain is now elevated to an elevated frequency. Like now you have activated these neural pathways in your brain that are like fucking full of cobwebs, essentially.
Maybe I'll stop typing in on the GPS
Probably.
The place I've been to 100 times.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's a fucking game changer because I'm like, I know how to get home.
Yeah.
Like, what would happen if your cell phone turned off? You'd be like, oh shit, I don't know how to get home. Like, what? Are you kidding me?
I just haven't done it one whole time and paid attention the entire time.
Pay attention. Be a little bit mindful. That mindfulness will now elevate your brain status, right? So when you guys were at the retreat with no cell phones, right, you were in elevated state. Not only because you weren't getting the dopamine kicks and the fucking, the blue light and all that shit, because you were being mindful about where you were at. So every minute you were there was intentional, right? So if I was going to leave everybody, promise we're going to leave this time. If I was going to leave everybody with something, it would be a little bit more mindful and intentional. So honestly, like that's number one. Just a little bit more intention in your life, a little bit more mindful about what you're doing, what you're putting in your body,
how you're lifting.
It
all is making a difference.
It all makes a difference. So, yeah. All right, that's it.
Man, thank you, brother.
All right, guys, we're out of here now.
Share this one because this is gold.